Admor Mitzanz, the Klausenberger Rebbe, he paskind a Chidush, or at least it looked like a Chidush, that Islam is idol worship. Islam is idol worship. Now everyone is familiar with the psak of the Rambam that Christianity and Catholicism is idol worship, but Islam is not idol worship. So when people saw at first time what the Klausenberger Rebbe said, and he was an extraordinary chacham. We're not talking about just talking about one of the Gdolei Ador, one of the giants, one of the literally the forefathers of our Torah in the world today in the last generation. Despite having his entire family murdered, 11 kids murdered in the Holocaust, he built an empire of Torah after the Holocaust. Despite literally surviving each day in the concentration camp by pure miracle, this did not discourage him or slow him down from building an empire of Torah over the next several decades. So we're talking about an extraordinary chacham that kept kosher even in the Holocaust. And he says that Islam is idol worship. Some people look at it, well, okay, it's a big chidush, but the Rambam says otherwise. Interestingly enough, the Rogachover Ga'on, who preceded the Admor Mitzanz slightly, he also says that Islam is idol worship. But since he was an expert beyond the norm of the Rambam, because all he studied was the Rambam and Gemara, they asked him, how can you paskin against your rabbi? How can you paskin against the Rambam? The Rambam says that the Islam is not idol worship. The Rogachover Ga'on gives a genius response that's applicable to everything we're saying. And he says, no, you're not understanding. Of course the Rambam is not going to say that Islam is actually idol worship. He lives in their country. If he would have said it, they would have killed him. So what benefit is it to him or to the Jewish world for him to die because he proved the point that they're idol worshippers? So he's going to say they're not idol worshippers, but really they're idol worshippers. They pray to all types of things that are, from the perspective of Judaism, considered idolatry. But he's not going to write it. Same thing like 400 years after him, Rav Yom Tov Heller, where in this literally life or death hearing, he said, no, the idol worship of the Akum, it's not Christianity, it's somebody else, it's these other people that lived thousands of years ago. So sometimes you have certain things in the Torah censored, not because of this is the bottom line, but rather because there was life risk. There was life risk. So they had to say certain things in order to not disclose the truth to the Gentiles. This is also one of the reasons why KADOSH Baruch Hu did not have the oral Torah given to us in written form on day one. It was thousands of years later before it became into written form, and even after it became into written form, it still requires an enormous amount of study and masoret and tradition that's passed from generation to generation to actually understand the oral Torah. Why? Because there are many details within the oral Torah that the non-Jewish world will simply not understand because they are only looking at things from their perspective, not from the Jewish perspective, the Torah perspective, God's perspective. They're looking at things from their perspective. It's like when people look at the Gemara and they look at certain statements in the Gemara and they immediately say, oh, look, how are they allowing something like this? Or how are they forbidding something like this? All types of, obviously, ways that people like to make Judaism look bad. They usually highlight one specific statement that's, obviously, they don't have the ability and the tools to understand. But the point being is that we see from here that just one, example of how something like a parasha that we have right now that seems like it's not relevant literally saved the life of the Gdolei Ador. Saved the life of Gdolei Ador. On the other hand, we also see of how another giant chacham told us, yes, this is the reason why this Gadol, why the Rambam said this. It wasn't because that was really the bottom line. He depended on our wisdom to know what's the truth. But he had to say something in order to save his life.